This is Continuum Drag, a weekly podcast revisiting television sci-fi, fantasy, and everything in between. This week, I married a monster.
Our gene pool has been diminished to the point where we can no longer reproduce with our own kind. We needed to find a place, a way to keep the species alive.
Well, why here? Why Earth?
You have no idea how truly rare life is in the universe. But so far, the interbreeding isn't going well.
Like Linda. Is that the result of this grand experiment of yours? Is that what I have to look forward to?
You are carrying our only hope for the future.
Have you ever heard of abortion?
I'm honestly offended by the notion.
Welcome to Continuum Drag, the podcast that learned everything it knows from TV. I'm Luke, here with my co-host Jordan. What's real, Jordan?
I'm worried about something on this that I don't think has ever happened before. I'm worried I have too much to say about this movie.
Well, that's great, because I have the exact opposite problem.
Ihor, what about you?
I'll be in the middle ground. I can probably fill in the gaps and not say too much. So I'm like, I'll be the middle guy, the mediator.
Well, as you can hear, we're joined by a guest this week. Returning guest, Ihor, welcome back to the program.
I'm glad to be back. I feel like a veteran.
So, what were you here for last? I always think about this before we start, and I'm like, I'm not going to look it up, so I'll just ask the guest.
I actually was trying to remember the name of it yesterday. It was that Tyrannosaurus Rex
Steel
machine.
Justice.
Steel Justice. I knew. Yeah, there you go. I knew it would have come to me. Steel Justice, which was what, episode 60. So you guys are almost 100 episodes in since that recording. So wow. Time flies.
Every 60 episodes, you get to come back.
Awesome. I'll be there.
And people still ask about Steel Justice. They ask, when's Ihor coming back and when's the sequel?
Oh, really? Wow. You guys are flattering me.
This is what Jordan gets on the street.
Yeah, on the street. People
on the street.
Yeah, they're stopping me all the time. It's mostly Steel Justice related questions.
You said it was like one of your top 10 most popular ones. Like, part of me wants to think it had something to do with me, but I know it's clearly factors outside of anything that I had to do with. So I just, it's curious though.
People like dinosaurs and people like robots. And they like magical people who go into your dreams and tell you to think up robots.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Well, we're not talking on Steel Justice this week. This week we're talking about a very different film. I Married a Monster from 1998, a UPN film, the one that kicked off UPN's apparently long-running science fiction nightly movie trend that we started with, what was it called? Codename Phoenix?
Codename Phoenix, yeah.
This was the one that started it all, apparently.
For everyone listening, it was like UPN just decided at one point, like, you know where the money's at? Weird TV movies that are kind of vaguely science fiction, and they just pump them out. And I think they spent about $30 in each of them.
It's got that Goosebumps for adults feel. That's kind of what I realized when I was watching it.
Yeah, it is like borderline a Hallmark movie.
Yeah. Just scary.
It's interesting you guys say that, because that was one of my notes, before we even get into it, was for all intents purposes, this is a Hallmark movie where it's sort of like scenes of people talking that aren't really saying anything, and then you go to another scene where people are talking and they don't really say anything. The only difference is there's kind of an alien in this. Other than that, this could very easily be changed into a Hallmark Christmas movie.
Yeah, it's all about relationships and getting married for every single character. Other than there being an alien, you would never know the difference.
I think that was best exemplified by that scene where the alien's dying and he's like, I still loved you, and then he like fades away. And it had this very Hallmarky cliche moment to it.
And I should mention that the writer, guy's named Dwayne Poole, he's like written a bunch of TV movies, and in the last 20 years, he has written exclusively Hallmark Christmas movies. So like that's what this guy does. That's what he knows.
That's a good gig.
They just got a Christmas guy movie, and they're like, "What if you stick an alien in it?" He's like, "But we're still just talking about a marriage, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, that's fine."
Just write in an alien somewhere. Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about Dwayne Poole. I've got a little trivia about him for you.
What's that?
Okay.
This is very specific to a very specific group of people in probably a very small window, but I know him best because he wrote, I think in 1990, a film for television in which all of the Saturday morning cartoons teamed up together to stop a kid from smoking crack.
What was
It's
that?
an anti-drug show.
It was it was in 1990. Hold on, I got it at the end of my notes because I was going to bring this up much later. But I remember watching it as a kid, and it basically was a very like I think Bush-esque era thing where they brought together the Muppet Babies, Elf, Winnie the Pooh, the Looney Tunes, the Smurfs, Garfield, Slimer, and the Ninja Turtles to stop a child from doing drugs.
Wow, this is like the cartoon version of Live Aid.
Yeah, it was called Cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue. And as a kid, they used to have it at the video store on VHS, and it was the only video you could get for free. And I think we used to take it every time we went and just watched all our favorite cartoon characters team up together.
To fight.
What did they do? Did they actually fight someone, or did they just sit around a room lecturing children?
That's basically it. They would all individually like pop up and be like, "Hey kid, maybe don't smoke that crack." And the kid's like, "Maybe I will." And then Michelangelo would drop by and it's like, "Hey, have you thought about not smoking crack?"
Alf shows up. He's like, "My uncle died of fentanyl, kids. Don't be like him."
It's a lot of moralizing with your favorite cartoon characters.
Yeah, so this guy, that's what I know him best from, is he wrote this really insane cartoon crossover back in 1990, and I was like, wow, look at how far he's come.
And if we're talking about weird crew members on this, there's something else we should mention before we get into it, which is, it's maybe only interesting to me, but it has some of the worst wardrobe I've ever seen in a movie. That this movie, and we'll go through it, everyone is dressed as if it's the 1950s, but seen through the 90s for some reason. And at first I was like, is this just not very well done? And then I looked up the woman's credit. So the woman who, let me just see my note here. So the costume designer is named Debbie Shine. And I was like, oh, is she just bad? Like, I wonder what's weird about, why is everything so odd? So I looked up her credits. I'm going to give you a couple of her credits here. Hot Legs, Titillation, Insatiable 2, Sex Wars, Peeping Tom. She only does costumes for porn. So the woman, I looked at her credits. She's got like dozens and dozens of these. For like 20 years, she only did costumes for porn and then a few TV movies, this being one of them.
This is like after her illustrious porn career, right? Like,
no, it's
this is
during.
later. It's during. Okay, so she took a break from her typical.
I think she just had some costumes on the side.
She just does a job.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. There you
I mean, I'm not going to fault anyone who's creatively involved in this. This whole thing feels like someone showed up and was like, hey, make a movie next week. And they're like, all right, we'll do the best we can. Like, it doesn't feel like anyone's to blame. Like, there's no creative head who made a decision. Everything about this felt purely mercenary. Like, turn a movie in next week for X number of dollars. Everyone said, okay, we'll do our best.
Yeah. And they had the budget of a Who's Afraid of the Dark episode.
Yes. And I mean, Jordan, actually, I will say, to your point that everyone looks like they're dressed in the 50s, there is a reason for that, and that it probably is a conscious choice, because this is a remake of a 1958 film, I Married a Monster from Outer Space, that was released as a double feature with The Blob.
Right, but this doesn't take place in the 50s. Like, it may be an homage.
Well, I think that's what it is. What you're seeing in this weird, like, timelessness that they give all the weird costumes in these places, I think someone was just like, it's kind of based on a 50s thing, so let's maybe give it a 50s vibe. Like, I think that's the whole thought process that went into it.
Oh, they're watching those black and white movies throughout as well. So I don't know if that like influenced the aesthetic of that. Obviously, it was an intentional choice, but it kind of reflects. Now that you guys are mentioning that, yeah, it sort of reflects in the tone of the movie.
I think the costume designer was like, they're like, what do you want to do? And she's like, well, they're going to be dropping these clothings in a couple minutes, right? They're like, no, they wear them the whole scene. She's like, wait a minute, they wear them throughout the scene?
No one told me this.
I mean, she was not like everyone else. She came on 2 days before production, was just like, what's happening? All right. Well, we'll get into it in a second, because this was broadcast in October 1998. And of course, we should find out what was happening in the world when I Married a Monster was on television.
What was happening?
I know Ihor was rocking at home watching Dawson's Creek.
Yeah, that's true. It was the first year that Dawson's Creek came out. So that's true. It probably started. I graduated from high school. That's what I remember. That's 1998.
That was the year you graduated?
Yes, it was.
What was your graduation song, Ihor?
I didn't have one. Lady in Red.
Krista Berg?
Christopher.
Do you think this is a personal thing you choose? You're a personal graduation song?
Oh, it's not?
Usually the high school has a like dedicated song.
I don't think
they
we
do,
did
yeah.
either.
No, that's what I'm trying to think. We didn't have one. So.
You guys may have been around that time that it was that sunscreen spoken word piece that was in. If you were in like 1998, I think that was about the period that Romeo and Juliet was out, and that particular song on the soundtrack was everybody's high school theme.
Yeah, it's probably around that time.
At any rate, what else was happening in the world? October 11th. I've only really got two things here. So October 11th, the now like massive multinational Chinese tech company Tencent was founded as a like ICQ knockoff. It was just like going to be a messaging app that really aped ICQ. But now, of course, it is a heavyweight in science fiction because it is the largest publisher of video games in the world and has produced films like Wonder Woman and Terminator: Dark Fate.
Really?
Oh, weird. I didn't know that.
It is a huge. It is one of these like massive scale multinational corporations that we'll all be slaves to one day.
Do you think in the office though they still use that messenger service? Like it's part of. They're like, hey guys, don't chat with each other on anything other than that messenger.
It's our legacy.
They do because the messenger is now called WeChat, the biggest chat platform in the world.
I've never even heard of WeChat. Is that because it's in China?
Yeah, it's huge in the Asian market and it's like making its way over here. But it's where because a lot of the messenger apps can't get out of the U.S. into the Chinese market. It's one of the biggest in the world now.
Weird.
I learned something new.
Yeah, that was founded 3 days after this aired.
Wow,
doing much better than I Married a Monster. And in Continuum Drag history, Jordan, one show was running that we watched during this show. TV show.
1998. TV show? 1998.
I can lower it down for you too. It happened. We watched it this year.
It wasn't that British show with the vampires, was it?
It was. It was Ultraviolet.
Hey, nice.
You're getting good. You're really putting these places in your head on the calendar.
Mm-hmm. Wow, what a difference in what was on TV, huh? That Ultraviolet, which was like, if you watched it now, you would think it was made a year or two ago. Like it's pretty ageless, and then this thing is like just a timestamp of late 90s.
If you watched it in 1998, you'd be like, "Is this made this year?"
Yeah, exactly. It has the special effects equivalent of that Eiffel 65 music video, Blue. That's the CGI quality we have in this movie.
The CGI is hilarious.
All right, well, let's get into it, you guys. Here's the IMDb summary for I Married a Monster. Kelly's husband, Nick, begins behaving oddly, showing a surprising desire to make babies and shun his drinking buddies. Little does she know, he's not entirely himself.
Do we think right off the bat, is this like a veiled attempt at like a pro-life movie?
No, I don't think this had any agenda whatsoever.
I think they switched their intentions several times as the movie progressed.
This was
fair enough.
The intention of this movie was like, here's $10,000, get us a script by Friday.
We got to shoot it next weekend.
It opens on a wormhole opening in space, which also very cheesily sucks up the title credit. And out of the wormhole pops a little egg-shaped spaceship, I guess. And these are these weird little aliens who are going to be coming to the town of Blue Falls. And in a classic sci-fi trope we've seen a few times, they're learning English by watching our TV as they arrive in our atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. But they really procrastinated, huh? Do you think they've been watching the whole time, or it was like they just start coming into our atmosphere and they're like, oh crap, we better start watching?
They pop in and they just flip that TV on. They're like, all right, I got it.
They're learning human emotions.
I noticed one of them they were watching was Superman. That's not going to help you.
I mean, this is something that they didn't lean into, I guess, enough. I don't know if it would have been that good anyway, but like when it starts at the beginning of the movie, the like aliens are essentially body snatchers. They'll take over the like form of a human being, so no one knows who's an alien and who's not. But they, for a little bit at the start of this, only speak in like commercial cliches. Like they'll like if you've heard a catchphrase in a commercial, they'll sort of use that in their dialogue. But they really like don't lean into that at all. Like it just pops up from now and then as a gag. But it just felt like I'm like, well, if you're gonna do it, just like do it.
Well, you're right, because it's not the freshest idea ever. Like we've seen it a million times in TV where that you can kind of mine that for comedy, that sort of fish out of water, or someone pretending to be someone else and they get the wrong term or they use the wrong turn of phrase or something. But there's no like subtlety or nuance or even real effort in this movie, so that's just like they'll mention it, but they're like, just hand wave over that because that's not what's important. What's important is seeing this couple argue over and over.
So just the aliens essentially took over. They didn't take over the personality of the individual that they're taking over, right? Like they just had their physical form because it didn't really kind of. Yeah, that's one thing I was unclear about. At the end, it almost had like a Matrix-y vibe, but the whole movie, it was an uncertainty.
Well, they're going to land their little egg field by an acreage outside of Blue Falls, where a couple is about to get married, Kelly and Nick, and they're going to be our real core couple in this.
I have a question for Ihor. When they were landing that ship, Ihor, do you think they had trouble finding a parking meteor?
Well
I knew
done,
Ihor
sir.
would like that.
Well done. I appreciate that one.
I've got more.
Great. I guess this is what you've been preparing for all week.
Bring him on. Bring him on.
So it's like the day before this wedding of Kelly and Nick, and we meet Nick out at a local bar, just getting shit-faced with his buddies. They're playing pool. I'm hoping hard knuckle out there. They're just shooting some pool, losing some fingers.
Let me just mention one thing. I noticed in IMDb, I don't know why, the characters are all credited with much longer names than they need. His character is credited on IMDb as Nicholas David Farrell, and within quotes, Nick. Like, just say Nick. You're never gonna. His last name's not important. And the wife we're gonna meet is Kelly Victoria Drummond. Why do we need so many names? We don't need their middle name.
Somebody was just very committed to getting all the details of this show
I suppose.
onto IMDb. But yes, they're sort of, I guess it's not a bachelor party, it's kind of just like a pre-wedding party they're throwing him at a bar. Did you notice the bar owner was one of the few faces I recognized? Jerry's dad from Seinfeld running the bar.
Actually, it's interesting you mentioned that. 4 of the people are from Seinfeld. The 2 leads are both Seinfeld, and the dad from Seinfeld, and then another guy who was one of George's bosses in Seinfeld. 4 major people who were all in Seinfeld at this time. It's like they were like on the lot across the street, and they're like, hey, just come on over.
Just come on down.
You're in.
That's how they formed. No, I guess Seinfeld was on at that time too, right?
Yeah.
Like, Seinfeld was already running.
But essentially what we get to see is they're getting drunk at this bar, having a good time, and after Nick is good and drunk, he gets in his car and drives over to, I guess, the acreage he and Kelly share. There's so much drunk driving at the start of this movie.
I love it. I love that I was like, oh, maybe that's a thing you're not supposed to notice, but they like mention it later. He's just like, yeah, I was drunk driving. Can you believe it?
They all love it. They're all like, great. But he goes over to see Kelly on the night before their wedding because he wants sex. He's very drunk. He wants to go have sex with her. And she shows up at their, I guess, shared acreage. I guess he's going to spend somewhere else that night because it's the day before the wedding. And he's just like, hey, let's have sex. She's like, literally, we have all of the guests at our wedding staying at our house tonight. We can't have sex with them in the house. And he's like, no, it's fine. And they proceed to have sex in the living room in front of the fireplace with the guests upstairs.
Yeah, I liked it.
It's ballsy.
She's like, no. He's like, come on. She's like, no. Hard cut. They're having sex. You're like, oh, okay. Well, that worked. They should have another shot of his parents just laying in bed, eyes wide, like horrified at what they're hearing.
Hearing the noises downstairs.
Yeah.
Someone comes down for a glass of water and they're like, oh, no.
Maybe that's their kink. Who knows?
And then once they're finished, he goes and gets back in his car so he can drunk drive away. And what we didn't see is, what we didn't talk about was as that alien ship landed, Kelly owns a dog, and that dog heard the alien ship landing because it like kicked up a storm and lightning was everywhere, and the dog had run off to find this alien ship. And now as Nick is drunk driving away, he nearly hits the dog on the road. And he's like, hey, it's Kelly's dog. I should follow it into the woods and I guess get it back for her because she misses her dog. But he'll stumble across this egg-shaped spaceship and gets sucked inside, and we're left to wonder, oh, what's happened to Nick now that his wedding day is the next day?
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like an orb, like a dome. That's sort of like electricity and purpley. It doesn't look very good. Like the special effects haven't aged very well, but it's the color that seems to be like everything in this is kind of purple.
It's like the Gungan orb in when they were battling the droids. Like they did that force field.
I mean, you would know, Ihor, because the listener that can't see this, but you are in front of a Zoom Star Wars prequel background as a super fan.
Stacey Tin, Kit Fisto, and that other guy. See, I'm even learning their names.
See, super fan, everybody.
Just trying to describe it for the audience so they know what you guys are talking about if they didn't see the movie. It's like that purpley, glowy orb that doesn't let anything through. It's like a force field.
You know, like the Gungan orb, everybody.
Like the Gorgon orb in Phantom Menace. Go watch it.
But yeah, it's the CG in this movie is
Horrible.
I wouldn't even say of its time. It's of about 4 years before its time. That's kind of the effects they can use. I think they do okay with this one thing because they just choose to make it like a translucent, like force field-esque thing that you never get a good look at. So they're like, that's what it is. So don't look at it too hard.
Oh, and let me mention something while we're talking about this. The poster for this movie, which I don't know why they made a poster or like a promotional image, is of the two main cast. Like, it's supposed to be like their kind of wedding photo, but his face is all sort of like ripped off on the side and it's got an alien. But the weird thing about it is the alien in the picture is like a green tentacle thing, but in this movie it's clearly purple. So like, did no one take the time to proof check this?
They probably designed that poster before the movie came out, and then they changed it in the production budget.
I think green is better, by the way.
Yeah, purple's a nice take.
I didn't mind the purple. That was one of the only original touches to this movie, was that purple alien.
I concur.
But yes, next day at this wedding, Nick's nowhere to be found. Kelly's mom is trying to reassure her that it's going to be okay, and I believe her mother tells her, "Don't worry, your dad was always late. Is one of the only things we ever fought about. That and his drinking and his affairs."
I know. It was almost for this movie a pretty funny line, and I don't think it was intended to be as funny as it came across, because a lot of this dialogue, people are sort of like the bar scene you mentioned earlier where all the guys together, they're all sort of like ribbing him and they're all kind of making jokes, but they're not funny and they don't sound like anything any human would say. But then this line came out, it was the only sort of unintentionally funny line.
I was just going to say, I mean, it's just so grim compared to like the rest of the film it's in. Like, it's such a like grim take on marriage that it is just like almost laugh out loud funny because it hits you out of nowhere.
Yeah. It would be like they're just having the normal conversation. Like, yeah, that's like the only fight we had. Remember when we lost our child? Anyways, back to the wedding.
Just as a side note.
Yeah.
Anyway, Nick does finally show up to this wedding, and of course he just blames it on getting in an accident last night because he was drinking and driving. And everyone's like, yes, that makes sense to us. I'm glad you're here.
well, they also do mention, we kind of joked about how flippant everyone is about the drunk driving, but they also a theme through this we're going to find out is the aliens don't drink. So anyone whose body they take over, that's one sign that it's an alien is they don't drink anymore. But it's so weird that apparently the whole town is full of, I won't say alcoholics, but people who just can't stop drinking. So if you don't have a drink in one night, everyone's like, what's weird with this guy? It's odd.
Well, that's just it. And like Nick's behavior from now on is going to be clearly to the audience quite strange. Like you immediately know that an alien has body swapped him. Of course, everyone else around them is just going to constantly be waving it away as just like, it's just wedding jitters. He's just got newlywed wedding jitters.
Yeah, like if it was me, I would have had him go to the doctor immediately because he's acting as if he has brain damage from the car accident. That's what I would have said. I'm like, he's clearly has hit his head. We need to take him to the doctor. But they're just like, let's see how this works out. I think he'll get better.
It took Kelly a while to catch on. Like, you think it would have happened within the first hour? Took her about at least a good day.
Well, it's true. And Ihor, you mentioned this earlier, like how much of his personality does the alien retain? Like how much knowledge does he have of this planet? And I could never tell because even at this wedding scene, they're up at the altar, they're getting married, they're saying their vows. And of course, the alien doesn't know to say, I do. Like he's just like the alien is just like on over his head. And that should be a sign. But when the priest says, kiss the bride,
he knows
the
that.
alien's like, oh, well, I got this. I know how this custom works.
Well, it's something we've learned
Selective.
about these aliens is it's sort of like you're saying, you're selective of what they know and don't know. But one thing they do know is how to do it. That's one thing these aliens know how to do. Because I kept thinking like, oh, they're not going to have a weird scene where the alien's having sex with a woman. But like, no, they're going to do it multiple times.
And he did it quite naturally too. It's like, it's funny that the aliens share very human characteristics. They all speak English, but it's very selective what they did. Like they don't remember. So it's based on the director's selective amnesia.
It's whatever they need to push the script forward.
Yeah.
But that's it. After the wedding, the newlyweds hop in their convertible and head off to their honeymoon at a safari-themed resort where all the staff wear pith helmets and khakis.
By the way, they left their dog. Was the dog not lost? And they just said, "Don't worry, he'll be okay." And they sort of just left the dog while they went on their honeymoon.
That dog is now missing for the rest of the movie, and she could not give two shits. When I was pulling clips for it, I noticed in the background there are misting posters for that dog scattered throughout this movie, but no one ever mentions it.
No one cares.
Again.
No one cares. Poor dog.
You
think if you had
there's
you
a
had
character
dog,
somewhere. There's a character somewhere that cares, but we don't see this character. They're the person putting up the wanted poster, the like missing dog posters, but
Missing dog.
they're just off camera.
And it's not the owner.
No.
Clearly the person who cares enough doesn't actually own the dog.
No, exactly. Yeah, they just like, now we're at a honeymoon. It's all kind of for naught. Like, it's all the more just show how weird Nick is now. Like, he doesn't know how to use a credit card. He doesn't want to drink anymore because, as Jordan said, alcohol is bad for these aliens. So now he's just like, oh, I quit drinking. Thanks, because I'm married to you, right?
This is what you wanted.
And we cut from honeymoon, and they just go back home. Like, the honeymoon goes by in like 2 scenes, and it's just, I don't know what it's there for other than to show us he doesn't know how a credit card works.
I was sure that it was going to be a thing, and I don't know why I thought this. I just thought it was going to be a thing where he's going to keep trying to have sex with her, and it was not going to happen for some reason because he's being weird. But they get right into that they're having sex all the time. But I had a question for Ihor. Ihor, after they had sex the first time, were you hoping she was going to say it was an interstellar performance?
It didn't occur to me, but I'm going to use that one next time I have sex.
Because you're an alien?
No, yeah, you're right. It wouldn't work. Okay, I guess that's the thing.
No, say it and then say, if Jordan was here, he'd find it really funny.
I'll do that.
That's what your wife wants to hear
Afterwards.
If Jordan were here.
But speaking of coitus, though, was that what impregnated her, or was it that scene where she, like, later on? Because I didn't understand that. Like, what exactly? How did she?
The timeline's a
I
mess.
think this is just.
Yeah.
I think that what's supposed to establish at this honeymoon is that, like, he's weird, but, like, I guess the sex is okay. Because literally, we jump to the next scene. They're coming home from their honeymoon, back to their acreage, and their friends, Linda and Steve, are waiting for them at home. And they immediately split off into, like, gendered pairs. They're like, you go with your friend, I'll go with my friend. And both of these friends, the only thing they want to talk about is, like, tell me details about how you had sex on your wedding night.
Spare me no detail.
Who are these friends?
I know.
You know what's funny? That's the only scene while I was watching it my wife kind of like saw, and she's like, "What kind of people like what kind of friends would like? Is this a normal conversation between friends?" And I'm like, "Apparently it is."
Yeah, it is. It is insane, and like this is when Kelly starts expressing some concerns over Nick's odd behavior during the honeymoon, and her friend Linda reassures her that it's not that bad because her second husband only told her on their wedding night that this was his 4th marriage. And like this woman, and like she starts throwing math numbers around as to how many marriages she's had, how many marriages her ex-husbands have had. I was just like, why are we hearing so much about this woman and her many, many marriages?
With a comment like that, you want a little bit more backstory on it.
You don't get it. You don't get enough. But anyway, like everyone else in this movie, they're just reassuring her, hey, don't worry about Nick. Just post-wedding jitters. This man's just got these wedding jitters. It's the one thing they'll say over and over in this movie. It's like, hey, is he acting weird? Newlywed jitters.
Yeah, and he gets out of at least 2 situations where he's like, look, here's the deal. I'm a little bit scared about getting married. She's like, yeah, I guess that makes sense for all the weird things that have happened the last 6 weeks. Yeah, forgiven.
Yeah.
And Nick goes off. He goes back to hang out with his drinking buddies. But of course, now that he's a teetotaler, they're all a little put off. And this Steve friend, he's just like, hey, man, I'm a little worried about you. You're not drinking. And Nick's like, hey, you know what? I found something really cool in the woods. Why don't you come check it out with me? And of course, Steve's going to get shoved into that alien ship. And now Steve's going to be body swapped.
Mm-hmm. Although
this is essentially
Although I say all the characters are so two-dimensional, it's hard to tell what they were like before to after. There's not that much difference.
Just not drinking. That's the only indicator.
Yeah, that's it.
And this is, I guess, the plot of the entire thing is from now on, whenever we go back to this bar, more and more of their friends now just don't drink. They all just drink soda water, and they all watch TV to learn more about Earth's languages and customs. And that's how you basically, the only way you can tell that this town is getting taken over is that people just stop drinking over the course of time of this movie.
The bartender is
what
not
I like
happy.
though is that apparently, yeah, exactly. The entire economy of this town is based on bars. It's supposed to be like a small town, and later on in the movie, we'll actually see a bar has closed, and they imply that several bars have closed because this town of alcoholics are not drinking, and it's just killed the lifeblood of the town.
It is so funny. It is very much that's the undercurrent. This small town only loves to drink. Oh, that's it.
They turn their back on drunk driving. The bartenders, that's his.
And the margins for these businesses are so thin that if a couple weeks people aren't drinking constantly, those businesses are done.
Kelly, meanwhile, goes to visit her uncle, the town doctor, and she's worried about him. So she's there to talk about Nick. He's like, there's a problem with Nick. And of course, her uncle doctor is just like, don't worry about it, wedding jitters. But what we do get to see is that the local town paranoid is overhearing their conversation.
Yeah.
And we'll see him like handing out weird pamphlets, and like we're like, oh, here's a man who's going to believe her. This weird, crazy person who borders between like cute, like cute local kook and like full on paranoid schizophrenic in the scenes he's in. It's tough to tell what his deal is.
But what's weird about this character is you almost want to give this movie credit because you sort of, as someone who's at least savvy enough, who's watched TV, kind of assume where this is going to go. It's that kind of trope of the guy who's a little bit crazy is actually the one we should be listening to. He's like, I've seen aliens, and then you're like, oh, there actually is aliens. And that's where you think this is going, but then it's like they run out of time. They're like, hey, here's this guy who's being set up as this, and then later on they're like, yeah, don't worry about him. He's not important to this movie at all. He doesn't do anything. This is just a couple scenes of him getting thrown around.
Well, that's it. He'll like see some alien body swapped cops, or no, I guess they're not. He sees some cops go into an alley, and they're like either vaporized or body swapped, because they walk back out. And now they're like regular cops, but clearly we know they've been turned alien. Like, he's been seeing the weirdness. He's like picking up on it, and you're just waiting for that moment when he's going to like finally connect with Kelly, and they're gonna like realize this is happening. And like, there's almost that scene at one point where he shows up at her acreage. He's spying on Nick. But Nick just uses his alien psychic powers to call his alien cop buddies. They come and arrest this like local kook, and the next time you see him, he's been body swapped and out of the movie. So those two characters never cross paths. He serves no purpose.
It's unnecessary to build him up and then use him in such a trivial, unnecessary, frivolous manner.
But at any rate, Kelly is still a little wonky. She like walks into the street after visiting her doctor uncle and nearly gets hit by her two friends, Steve and Linda, in a car, which I was just like, what is happening here? But they're just there to announce, hey, my newly body swapped husband or boyfriend, Steve, he just proposed to me. I'm getting married too. Isn't that great? Like, this is to indicate that this alien plan has something to do with marriages and soon to be breeding.
I don't want to pick out too much at this movie, but the timeline of this movie, I couldn't figure it out because sometimes it seems like weeks are passing, and sometimes it seems like it's a day later because like this, she announced they're going to get married, and immediately they're getting married. Are we supposed to believe that weeks and weeks have passed? Because it seems like it's been days.
Yeah,
I think it's supposed to be a whirlwind.
It's all happening at once.
Yeah, because she like bumps into them outside just after she's got married. Steve's just been turned into an alien, and he's immediately proposed, and she's just like, oh, this is weird. What's going on in this town? But thankfully for Kelly, she's quickly distracted because she sees, I guess it's a pet store with a bunch of puppies outside, and she just immediately buys a new puppy to replace the dog that ran away that she hasn't looked for.
Talk about impulsive. Like, she didn't even care to look for her old dog.
I know. She's just like, I don't know where that old dog went. I'll just grab a new one while I'm in town.
That lady should not own pets, I'm telling you that.
This was the part that made me the most insane. This whole thing with her missing dog and her just buying a new puppy. I was just like, I don't like this, Kelly.
That being said, it's like, it's not even the major points that are irritating about the movie. It's these little minute things like, why didn't she look for her dog? Why is she randomly buying another dog? It's these kind of like throw-ins that are the most illogical.
I mean, and it is just to set up a scene where she brings this puppy home. Of course, dogs don't like aliens. Like, as you would expect, they bark when they see an alien. So Nick proceeds to kill the dog in the basement, the puppy. He kills the new puppy in the basement of their home. She left the room 30 seconds earlier, and then she's up in the kitchen, just hears a dog being murdered, and he walks in and he's like, yeah, weird, the dog died.
He got She didn't investigate that very well.
Well, she's pissed off about it, but it's just so weird. She really lets it go that her husband obviously killed a dog.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's supposed to be a sort of building of things where it's like, one thing after another, but it's done in such a disjointed manner that it doesn't feel like it's building. But I want to mention one other quick thing. There's a scene just before this where it would be the scene just before we go to commercial if you're watching this on TV, where she comes home, I think after buying the puppy, and then he's angry and he starts cutting the lawn, and you get a shot where they pull up and you see that he's cutting a like circular pattern in the grass, being like, oh no, he's making some sort of symbol for other aliens. But one, they've never given any indication that that's how they communicate and someone could see it. And two, we've never come back to it. So it's just like, isn't that weird? He likes cutting.
Yeah, they're just like, crop circles are fun.
It's just to reaffirm that he's an alien. So that's what they would do in their free time.
But I have another question. For that, Ihor. Do you think
What?
he should have said, before he started cutting the lawn, he should have come up to her and said, "Take me to your weeder"?
You're prepared today. You've
Yeah.
been working on these. Nice.
Jordan sat down. He's been writing 20 minutes of material.
He knew I'd be a guest on today, so he's been working. That's great.
But anyway, he murders this puppy. And then, she's obviously a little pissed off about it. But he's just like, listen, I got to go. I got to go sell some insurance to my buddies at the bar, which is now we discover around this point he sells insurance. And for the rest of the movie, he's just like, I got to go sell insurance at the bar. I'll be back.
I actually think they missed a turn, though, because there is something. I know it's not what this movie wanted to be. They weren't looking for funny situations. But him and that fish out of water pretending to be someone else and then having to go still work. Is there something kind of funny there that they maybe could have done a scene or two? But also, this movie just washes over it because seemingly he is still working this entire time for weeks. He's like, apparently,
As far as we know.
everything's fine. He's still doing okay. He's still bringing home money.
He's clocking in and getting paid.
I mean, especially since Kelly does not seem to have a job, he would be the one who had to.
Yeah. Well, it's the 1950s. She doesn't need to work.
But him leaving to go to the bar, what we're going to see is they're going to watch some old black and white movie on the TV, and it's a very romantic movie where a guy reprofesses his love for someone in the movie. And this is kind of going to be a series of events that we'll see repeatedly in this film. Is like, he has a fight with Kelly, he goes out, he comes home, and he just repeats the romantic lines from this movie to win her back over. She's back in love with him. They proceed to have makeup sex. And we're going to see kind of this repeated over and over where he leaves, they have a fight, he leaves, he watches TV, comes home, quotes movie lines, she forgives him. This time, they have makeup sex, and in the middle of the night she wakes up to see him leaving the house, and we get a scene where she follows him into the woods and sees this alien spacecraft and then is quickly abducted they're really trying to mimic the abduction scene from Fire in the Sky,
Yeah.
but on a super low budget version of it.
I was thinking about that movie the whole time I was watching this for some reason.
There's a funny thing too when they're doing this at first because it's like a wide shot of her on your classic kind of alien surgery table sort of thing, and I was like, is she naked? And then they do a shot up close, and the aliens have decided to put her in a head to toe skin leotard, skin tone leotard. I was like, interesting choice, aliens. I feel like this had to be PG.
They're very modest.
But yeah, we get a scene where she's spinning around on a table being, I guess, alien investigated or whatever. And then, of course, she just then wakes up in her own bed at home, and Nick proceeds to assure her, don't worry, all a dream, baby. It's all a dream.
I hate this in movies. I hate, I know it's supposed to be a gaslighting thing, but here's the thing. No one ever has had an experience, a very traumatic experience or something very vivid, and then the next day had someone be able to convince them it was a dream. Dreams don't work that way. They're way too ethereal and sort of symbolic and weird. It's just not the same as something that you actually experience. But you see this time and time in movies. You're like, oh, it was a dream. And they're like, I guess it makes sense.
Well, Jordan, you're a believer in alien abduction, so that you know that anyone who says they've been abducted it's real. You know if it was a dream, and they know it's not a dream, and you're always just like, it's happening.
Luke, we can cut this out of the podcast, but real quick, I went to this thing and it was like a exhibit for the stars, and they were talking about aliens with some friends. Anyways, and one person that I was with really embarrassingly put up his hand when they asked if anyone had an alien experience, and his alien experience was that him and his whole family were abducted, and the reason he knew they were abducted because on the drive home none of them talked, and they're all big conversationalists. How embarrassing is that? that was his evidence.
I'll give you a similar experience. I went very recently when you could still go to the movie theaters. There was a double header of Fire in the Sky and Communion, the two the new 90s alien abduction films. And so everyone was there just having a good time watching Fire in the Sky, having some laughs at this silly movie. And halfway through the movie, someone in the theater shouted, "What's so fucking funny?" And everyone was like, holy shit. Somebody was there to watch this for the documentary evidence and was so angry that people were laughing.
Well, it's not a comedy, though. Why were they laughing?
Well, it's also just very silly. It's a very silly movie.
I guess, yeah.
I mean,
in retrospect.
To be fair, Luke, you did that during Jurassic Park too, right?
Yeah, I was just like, why are you all laughing? I mean, don't do that. This is a solemn film.
I'm watching this.
But yeah, some people, like you, Jordan, big alien abduction belief.
Well, I'm telling you, if your family drives back from an alien abduction and is not having a conversation about it, something funny has happened.
Something's wrong.
Very quickly, we're hopping into Linda, I believe is her name, Kelly's friend. She's getting married. Kelly's trying to talk her out of it, like literally at I guess they're doing the wedding rehearsal. She's trying to talk her out of marrying Steve because she's like, Steve's an alien, you can't do it. She's okay with it though. Linda's just like, listen, he quit drinking and the sex is better. I don't give a shit. We're getting married.
Yeah, this is the first time they mentioned not only that the alien's having sex, but that they're much better at it.
It's very funny. And then we jump from the rehearsal to the wedding reception. They're married the very next day. And Nick, once again, like this has to be the 7th time he's tried this. He's just like tells Kelly, hey, sorry I've been so weird. It's wedding jitters. But this time Kelly's like, you know what? I'm choosing to believe it this time. Let's try this. Let's try this marriage one more time. I'm going to pretend I don't think you're an alien. And he really sells it home because he tells the accordion band that's playing at this wedding, it's mostly accordion, this band, to play their favorite song. And she's just like, this is wonderful. This accordion man's playing the song you proposed to. I love you again.
Well, so that's it. So he remembers their favorite song. So is there any remnant of her husband in there? Because how would the alien know?
It has to be.
There's got to be something. But then at the end, like they turn it on its head, and that's just something that really stuck out.
I also like that he proposed to her after hearing a song played on an accordion.
Well, that too.
Well, this is the most romantic song I could think of to propose to.
More importantly, though, she forgives him and is all fine with him being weird. Like moments after he's incredibly critical of her for drinking champagne. He's like, and he's constantly just being like a really annoying reformed alcoholic all the time. And it's like, okay, we get it. You don't drink anymore.
She wants to make the marriage work, so she's willing to try extra hard.
Yeah, I guess.
Exactly. Well, and the next day, her uncle doctor informs her she is pregnant. Mm-hmm. And not only that, as soon as she leaves the doctor's office learning she's pregnant, her friend Linda calls her and is like, I am also pregnant the day after my wedding.
Yeah.
So the aliens' plan to get women pregnant is working. In fact, they're so excited, they're celebrating with some sparkling water at the bar. Mm-hmm. And like, Nick and Kelly are excited. They go to a big fancy restaurant for the best scene of the movie. But Nick is just like, I'm so happy you're pregnant. Let's order some champagne to celebrate, to really throw her off. Like, I'm not drinking not because I can't, but because I don't want to. He takes a big glass of champagne, cheers their pregnancy, and then as soon as he drinks, he's like, now if you'll excuse me, I just need to use the bathroom very quickly.
He's like, excuse me, if you just one moment. It is unrelated to this champagne, let me assure you.
He heads into the bathroom, immediately like beelines to a toilet to start puking it up, and just some schmo in the bathroom washes his hands. He's like, hey buddy, had too much to drink? At which point this, I guess, pisses Nick off so much he turns around, morphs into a gooey pink alien or purple alien in front of this man, shoots a psychic laser out of his head to pick the man up, give him a swirly in the toilet, and then I think we're led to believe flushes the man entirely down the toilet as an alien.
Mm-hmm.
That was a pretty good scene, though. That was a funny one.
I mean, this is the best scene of the entire movie where a man gets swirled by an alien. But it was baffling and out of nowhere.
It was.
I think the character who was just there to make fun of the guy throwing up at the toilet is my favorite character in the movie.
He is fun to watch, for sure. And it's the first time we really get to see this alien in its full glory, and it is some pretty rough special effects. It is.
You can't take any jibing whatsoever, and the guy was unnecessarily confrontational for no reason.
Oh, man. It was such a weird... Listen... I guarantee you if you go to the Instagram and Twitter, that scene's going to be there. At any rate, this is just to say, like, everything's wonderful in this new world. Nick is getting away with being an alien husband, and Kelly and Linda immediately throw themselves a baby shower to celebrate their pregnancy. Hard to say when, like, they don't look that much further along in their pregnancy, so is this a week later? Is this the next day? Who knows? But at their, of course, baby shower, in the middle of it, Linda proceeds to have a full-on miscarriage. Mm-hmm. In one of the scenes that is also tonally out of place in this movie, we get a graphic shot of the miscarriage at some point. It's this like bloody purple mass, and I'm just like, why are you showing us this? What is this fucking movie?
Yeah, it was, and I actually watched it a couple times to try to see if I could tell it was an alien baby, but it's unclear because it's just like, you're right, It's almost too realistic for how silly this movie is. Like here's a real dose of realism for you guys who just thought you were enjoying some bad CGI alien movie.
I literally wrote down, did not enjoy.
Well, what's even worse was at the end, the cop's like holding the bag with the remains, just kind of like casually, and he's like tosses it over, like, here you go, like as if it was nothing. I thought that was even more out of place.
Yeah. Well, the coroner shows up to investigate. And he's just like immediately like blames it on Linda because she's like, she probably took some crazy drugs as a kid and it fucked up her baby.
He's super
Not my
patronizing.
problem.
It's great. He just shows up to be critical. It's like someone has just lost their baby. He's like, hey, guess what? It's your fault.
And Callie's really pushing him. She's like, that looked really weird. And he's like, I've seen worse.
He's like, I got put pictures. I'll show you in the back.
And then in a show of baffling writing and like directing and like just creation choices, we go from this miscarriage to hard cut 2 months later. I was like, what do you mean 2 months later?
Yeah, and so we're led to believe that she has been having this rather tumultuous relationship with this guy for over 2 months, and she's just dealing with it. This guy who's clearly an alien.
I mean, my assumption was like, I guess everything has been great for 2 months. Like, the honeymoon is going great. I didn't understand. Like, it's just such a weird movie where it's supposed to be the constant conflict to suddenly hop forward 2 months in a show that's like made us think 2 weeks have passed.
But also, why did 2 months pass? Like, what in terms of the story? Why do they need the time passage?
She's not even like, I thought they'd put a pregnant belly on her to show she's more pregnant. They don't even do that. So why did the time move?
Just to imply, I guess they were giving it a go.
Yeah, I guess so. And the scene we come back to is they've gathered all of their like couple friends. They've all gone out to this park by a lake to have a picnic together. And out on the lake, Linda, who lost her baby 2 months ago, is out with her husband Steve, the alien, in a canoe. And all of the men aliens are on the top of this hill, like watching terrified. And their wives are all like, why don't you guys go for a swim in the lake? You guys love to swim in the lake. Every time we come to the lake, you're always swimming in the lake. And I guess in this world, like the movie Signs, aliens are afraid of water, so the men are all just like staring terrified at the lake.
And is this the first time, by the way, that it's mentioned that water's a weakness, or did I miss something?
Brand new
Okay,
information.
that's what all right. It's all just, it's very random.
We needed the time passage to be able to establish that. So my note was, so no one's taken a shower or a bath in this whole time?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's a good question.
That's a good point.
The original scene actually was written that they were canoeing in a big vat of beer, but they couldn't find one in time, so they had to like reassess. Like water, they don't like water now.
What's the guy's name? Steve, right? The other alien guy.
Yes, Steve is the.
He's really taken a chance, right? Like, I mean, to be fair, they have him look very nervous, and she's for whatever reason thinks it's hilarious to shake a boat. Which, by the way, for anyone out there, if someone's scared, if someone's scared of drowning, and your joke is "I'm going to drown us," it's not funny. So like, don't do that. So not that like she deserves any sort of bad fate, but like the alien didn't want to go in the water. Just leave him alone.
Listen, Linda's being a bit of it. He's clearly afraid, and she is really, really teasing him by rocking that boat. I didn't care for that at all.
Yeah.
She's exploiting his fear.
Yeah, I guess it's just to have the scene where Linda and Steve are out in this canoe. He's afraid. And then she basically has him lean in for a kiss. And I guess the reason he's doing this is to really try to save his marriage. Like, this alien is working hard to make this marriage work.
Well, no, because he wants to have her happy so that he can impregnate her. That's really what this all comes down to.
He wants to have that baby. And she,
Try
as
again.
he leans in for a kiss, pushes him into the lake. And we get to see him fall in. And he's not only is he drowning in this lake, not only can this alien not swim, but also electricity is shooting into him from under the water, but no one else can see it.
Yeah. It's invisible electricity. I think it's just for the viewers to know things are not going well for him under there.
And then we cut back, and like the rest of this picnic is, 100 yards away. They're quite a distance from this lake. They're on top of this hill. They can see it all happening. And all the alien men, of course, are freaked out. Their buddy Steve has just fallen in, and they know he's done. And all of their wives simultaneously just start nagging them that they're not jumping in the water to save him. And I'm just like, well, neither are you. Your attempt to help him is to nag your husband. What is happening? Like, the relationship of men and women suddenly takes this turn where the only thing women do in this movie is nag their husbands. And I'm like, I don't like where this is going.
Yeah, it is funny because, I mean, I noticed the same thing. It's like they're yelling. Look, why didn't the whole thing is to point out that the men are acting weird. They're like, why didn't you do something? Why didn't you do something? And it's like, well, you could have done something too. But I did notice one man, I'm assuming not an alien, who hadn't been turned yet, who's apparently hanging with all his friends. He's the only normal one, and he jumped in to save the guy.
that guy who jumps into the lake, Jordan, the only reason I clocked him, he's like, there's like 3 lifeguards at this lake for some reason, and they're all like hunks. They're all like more hunky than most of the men
I
in
didn't
this
realize
movie.
he was a hunky
Hunky lifeguard. And I was just like, where do these hunky lifeguards come from? But yes, he jumps in, he pulls Steve out of the lake, and Steve is okay-ish.
Do they normally have lifeguards at a lake, though?
It seemed unusual. And not only that, the lifeguards immediately have access to like a tank of oxygen that they shove onto old Steve's face. And this is where like Nick and all the couples get down there, and Nick immediately is just like, aliens also can't breathe oxygen. So he tries to pull the mask off, and everyone yells at him. He's like, are you trying to kill your best friend Steve by taking that oxygen mask off? So Nick just kind of has to let Steve breathe oxygen and slowly die.
Yeah, it didn't make sense because he's like, no, the oxygen's bad. I guess maybe it's something in a rewrite. Not that this movie had any rewrites, but that to counter effect the water that's in his lungs, oxygen is bad. But you're right, it doesn't make any sense. The whole point is that it's another in 85 examples of him being weird that she's just going to ignore eventually anyway.
But they're breathing oxygen.
I know, it doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
That's what I was just like, also like, you're in this atmosphere, I guess. Anyway, whatever. Steve then essentially squeals like a teapot going off, and then he dies.
That's how I'm going to go out.
High-pitched and shrill.
My favorite part of this is Steve is dead. Linda is obviously beside herself because her 3rd husband has died. I believe she says, like, I've lost a 3rd husband. But what I love is she turns around and she basically blames every man in their friend circle for murdering him. And I'm just like, you pushed that man in the water when he clearly did not want to be pushed in the water. You murdered that man, not these other people.
Well, that's just a coping mechanism for when people feel guilt. They blame
throwing
others.
that blame around.
Yeah, throw the blame around.
I'm just like, well, Linda, you've lost my respect.
And at no point yet, after 2 months, has she realized he's an alien. So,
Well, I mean, Linda's intelligence is not one of her selling features to the many men she has married.
no, it's not.
But after all this has happened, the weirdness of the men not jumping in the lake, Nick trying to pull that oxygen mask off, this is what finally breaks Kelly's back. She is now finally suspicious enough of her husband to go into the woods in her dream. And she doesn't find the spaceship. She just finds her old slipper. And that's enough to convince her aliens.
That's interesting, right? Because earlier on, where we had a scene where he gaslights her and tells her it was only a dream, she pulls out her one shoe and looks at it and goes like, well, my one shoe is here, so I guess he's telling the truth. But she doesn't go, there's a shoe missing. And then she goes far enough into the forest to find the one shoe. I'm assuming another 10 feet past, there's the alien ship. She's just like, no, you know what? This shoe's enough. That's all the information I need. I don't need to go any further, anyone. That's all I need.
Her threshold for evidence is very low.
Yeah.
Yeah, she goes directly to the police, who we as an audience know are all aliens. So her attempt to tell them that her husband is an alien doesn't go so well. Though I do like, even her story sounds insane. Like, she didn't plan anything. She just shows up to the cops and starts screaming, my husband's an alien. And when they don't believe her, she's like, but I'm the sensible one. I was just like, excuse me?
It was like she looked at the show Bible and was like, her character was described as the sensible one. She's like, look, guys, it's evidence right here.
And so that doesn't work. So she just has to go home and confront her husband. And I don't know, I hadn't noticed this up till now, but she pulls up to the house in her convertible to confront old Nick. Did you notice her vanity license plate is just Kelly with a heart next to it?
I did not notice that.
No.
I got to go back and rewatch that.
I was just like, what a weird license plate. But she goes in, she confronts Nick. When he won't listen, she smashes the TV he's watching. And, like, that's the final straw. His face, like, turns purple alien, and the cat's out of the bag.
Oh, and I should mention, we didn't, this entire time, we haven't said that all of the alien men have this weird little tick they do so that the viewer knows they're an alien, which is they kind of move their head to the side, and it makes kind of like a crinkling noise, which I assume is, I don't know, something.
Possibly their language, maybe.
Yeah, but anyways, there's like a, and this is the first, that's been doing the whole movie, but then this is the first time where we get a little bad CGI of his purple face.
Yes, it flashes over his, like, human face, and basically the cat's out of the bag, and he essentially just comes clean. Like, he basically is like, all right, let me just explain to you what is happening with this whole alien plot. We've come to your planet because our race's gene pool has been diminished, so we can no longer reproduce with our own kind.
Is that because they're interbreeding or why?
I don't know how a gene pool diminishes to the point where you can't breed with your own species, but you can now travel the universe to breed with other species. I don't know how that would work, but this is what is happening. They're now on some sort of interbreeding mission to other planets. And because Kelly has managed to remain pregnant this whole time, her baby is the best hope they have to like save their race.
Okay, I have a couple questions. The first being, she's pregnant. We know she's pregnant. Her friend was also pregnant with an alien baby and lost it. And I think they're going to say later on, they're still having trouble actually carrying a baby to term and having this.
Yes, this interbreeding isn't perfect.
Yeah, but why did they take Kelly, our main woman, why did they also take her to the ship? That was just a checkup? Or was that the actual impregnation because the normal way wasn't working?
That's what I thought. I was wondering. I thought that's when she got impregnated. It was when she was in the ship. Like the coitus was just practice or whatever. Like
just for
the
fun.
Ship. Yeah, just for fun.
It is unclear. It is something that is unclear is whether the interbreeding is happening through traditional methods or if it was due to that like abduction sequence. They never really specify.
And the other thing I want to mention, which I just thought was funny, is they're having the argument. He's basically like, "You're right, I am an alien," and she's like, "I hate you," and he's like, "No one will believe you," and then she's like, "They will believe me." And he's like, "And you can't leave," and she's like, "Yes, I can," and she just leaves. And I was like, "Well, he wasn't even trying."
He says, I cannot let you leave. And then he proceeds to do just that. And she just drives away casually.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you didn't do anything. Like, you didn't stop her. Like, you said you couldn't.
Yeah, it's so weird. And like in one of the like grimmer lines of this movie that, you know, we're all thinking, obviously, when she's got an alien baby in her, what are her options? We all kind of know in the back of our head. But Kelly literally shouts at him, "I'm going to get an abortion." And then he says, "I don't care for those."
Well, it would be funnier if he was like, it's like a little gap in their knowledge of Earth, and he was like, "Abortion? Wait a minute, we didn't plan for this."
Didn't factor into their plans.
It feels like for a hot second, this is the direction it's going to take, is she needs to do this because, you know, she was essentially sexually assaulted. But they abandon it. I mean, like, they never come back to it. I was just like, why did you introduce, like, in what is essentially a Hallmark movie, you introduce a very, like, a topic, if you're going to bring it up, you probably need to talk about. And they just immediately just it's a throwaway line. I'm just like, what is happening in this movie? It at times just takes the, like, darkest, weirdest turn and then just forgets it.
Ignores it, like the puppy murder.
It'll tonally take the craziest shift and then just go back to being this, like, light, fluffy Hallmark movie. I'm like, what is this movie? Is insane. But eventually she doesn't know who to go talk to. Like, she knows there's an alien invasion happening. She doesn't know who to talk to, but she just decides, I'll go talk to my uncle doctor, because who else can I trust? And she figures that if they're body snatching people for an interbreeding program, they probably wouldn't take old guys because I guess old guys probably aren't breeding. This is her logic anyway.
Yeah.
And she goes to talk to him, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, you know what, as town doctor, I've heard quite a few similar stories to what you're telling me, so I believe what you're saying." And I'm just like, wait. There are people all over this town who are having this exact same experience, and we're just hanging out with Kelly.
Yeah. Well, it's one of them is the one who put up the missing dog posters.
Right. That person is very concerned about this invasion.
Yeah.
And is doing something about it, but we're hanging with Kelly. And her and her uncle doctor basically come up with a plan of what to do about this alien invasion. Is they go visit the old bartender, and they have him put together a list of all the men in town who are still drunks, because they're the only people you can now trust. And what they do is they essentially form a posse of old men who is the last hope to stop an alien invasion. No women allowed.
Yeah, what I like is, not only is it a bunch of old men, it's a bunch of old, angry, old white men with shotguns, and they're drunk. I mean, if there's a recipe for disaster, this is it right here.
Isn't that the NRA?
Do not attempt to talk to a single other woman in this movie who would be the one you could trust. It's like, no. These drunk old men with shotguns, that's our final solution.
Let me make the argument,
That's our
though.
hope.
In the next couple scenes, we're going to see a scene where Kelly grabs a shotgun and starts shooting like she's Rambo, but I'll make the point, she misses every time. So maybe maybe these old drunks are the better way to go.
Well, it is very funny, because, like, this is where I guess the momentum picks up in the movie. Like, Kelly immediately gets this posse together, and then she just goes home to reconfront her alien husband. And they get in another fight. Nick finally, like, slaps her across the face and then, you know, morphs into this terrible looking purple alien thing. And the CG, like, it's not great when they just do it for a hot second, but they actually make the alien creature walk at her this time.
Yeah.
And it like takes 2 steps toward her and then like clumsily falls down a set of stairs. And I was just like, what is happening?
Is it supposed to be like like an arachnid, like a kind of spider-like kind of character? Because it has a bunch of legs, right?
I don't know. Does it have
or claws?
I thought it was bipedal.
I thought he had legs though. I didn't. He had multiple legs. Did I miss that?
Well, maybe it was his claws. It looked weird, anyways. I'm not sure where it all fit in the body because what I actually thought was it was gonna like rip the skin off, but it's not even that. It's almost like the human skin is like a hologram, I guess.
Yeah,
it's a shell,
and it just like fades away, and then it like sort of. I think the idea is we're supposed to get the idea. It runs at her, and she trips it down the stairs.
Yeah.
But because the CG's so bad, it just like takes 2 awkward steps and then falls down a staircase. And I could not stop laughing. Anyway, she's doing this. She's locking Nick in the basement, and this old man posse is like arriving at this alien spaceship. I don't know how they found it. They just knew where to go. Doesn't matter. An alien comes out. One of these body swapped alien men comes out. They open fire on him. The bullets have no effect, so they're like, run away. Our bullets don't work.
Yeah, that was their only plan.
And Kelly crosses paths with them. Her missing dog reappears out of the blue suddenly because the aliens grab Kelly after she tries to shoot at them. They're holding Kelly. Her dog reappears in the last 5 minutes of this movie to jump on the alien's back, and it kills the alien in some way that it's unclear to me. And then the doctor's like, oh, it's that tube on his neck. We have to shoot the tube. And I'm like, what? What are you talking? What tube on his neck?
I like that. I guess no one told the dog that she didn't care about it, and she immediately replaced it because the dog's the real hero of this, and he's been living in the wilderness eating chipmunks, I guess,
for 2 months at least.
He looked very well fed for a dog that's been loose for 2 months.
He's been eating aliens. They don't know the entire time. He's just been eating aliens left, right, and center.
It's true. He knows about that tube on their neck.
So it's the tube that it's not dogs are a bane for aliens in general. It's specifically that tube that killed him.
Well, the doctor says as soon as he sees it, he's like, we have to shoot the tube on their neck, and then they proceed to go and shoot an alien, I guess, in the neck, and it dies.
And it dies, yeah. It's baffling.
They go inside of this alien egg ship, and it's not a great looking ship. It's okay.
It's not bad.
Whatever.
It's not terrible.
Not bad.
Yeah, that's where their budget went for the movie.
It's true. They built a nice little set. They find the townsmen. They're still alive. They're all strapped to the walls in kind of weird alien apparatuses with an oxygen mask over their face to hold them in a comatose state.
It's all Matrixy.
Very Matrixy. And of course, they pull one of the masks off to see if the men are still alive. And we cut to outside where I guess the alien whose body swapped with that man collapses into a pile of purple goo.
Yeah, so I guess what they're implying is that they need to keep the people alive because they are sucking some sort of consciousness or reflection from this person. So if that person is not connected to the ship, they will then die. But I don't know why they die, or why don't they just become their own form?
Yeah, why do they turn into a pile of purple goo? I mean, we've seen Steve die. He did not turn into a pile of purple goo in front of everyone.
I guess that explains if parts of the original personality are left in the alien. I guess you can almost assume that maybe if that's the mechanics, then yes.
Maybe. I guess, and they are psychic. They all talk to each other psychically, so maybe they can just steal a few. It's not
memories.
Perfect though. The system's not perfect. But essentially, this is it. This is they're basically saving the day because they're pulling all these masks off the men. We keep cutting to aliens collapsing to piles of goo. The ship starts shaking. It's rattling around, and Uncle Doctor's like, Kelly, go wait outside the ship while we finish up in here because we need to have one final confrontation with you and your alien husband.
Why does the ship start shaking? Because there's no indication they've done anything to injure the ship or damage it in any way.
Just for the tension.
The tension of the scene.
Yeah, there's no reason. There's no reason at all. And she goes outside. You alluded to this at the beginning of the episode here, Ihor. She goes outside. Alien Nick is waiting for her, and she's just like, I hate you so much. I can't wait for you to die as a pile of goo in front of me. And he's just like, oh, whoa, I thought we had something here. I really loved you.
I thought we were bonding after 2 months.
The alien professes his real undying love for her, and she's just like, nah, no thank you. And then he falls into a puddle of goo.
And if you just tuned in for that last moment, maybe it would have made sense because it's kind of like this scene with finality where the alien's fading away. But it kind of, you have to disregard everything that preceded going up to that point.
Well, you're right, because if they had as a sort of a subplot of this one particular alien was sent for this mission, which was to try to keep their species going by impregnating women on Earth, but along the way, he starts realizing something about him and starts gaining this, for lack of a better term, this humanity to him, or this realizes
a conscience.
Yeah, a conscience of some sort. But and goes, we shouldn't be doing this, and then he sacrifices himself at the end or something. Now, it's cheesy and we've seen it a million times, but at least it would make sense. They just throw this in like, oh, I loved you all the way. And I was like, why? Because of the multiple rapes you were doing the entire time?
Because you just slapped her a few scenes ago?
Yeah, I know.
Baffling. At any rate, the real Nick is saved. All of the old man posse gets out of the ship with everyone. The ship then takes off, I guess, of its own volition and flies away.
It's conscious.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's okay. Yeah, the ship's fine.
And then we hard cut to Kelly giving birth to her alien baby with purple eyes.
Yeah, but I like that.
And
that
what a reveal at
like,
the end there.
The characters are like, it's sort of like, that sort of like fake out ending where like they have a baby, everything's good, but oh no, it's an alien. I'm like, but of course it's an alien.
Yeah, we never doubted it for a moment. Yeah, we never doubted it wasn't going to be an alien.
The parents know it's an alien. Everyone seems very chill about the entire situation. They're like, we decided just to have the alien baby. Why not?
No, I think we're supposed to believe that they think it's theirs. They don't know. The little wink at the end is just for the audience. You're like, maybe more adventures to come?
How could she not know, though? She knows she's pregnant with an alien baby.
Luke, she was married to him for like 6 months and only kind of figured out that he was an alien.
She threatened to abort it.
There's enough gray area, though, where you can almost go, oh, maybe it was his real semen, Because, like, who is the body back in the ship? Maybe, like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe the alien's a surrogate, so there's still kind of some physical overlap between the surrogate that's powering the alien. I don't know. I'm attempting to make sense of it.
Ihor, you've just given more thought to this than anyone involved in the movie ever did.
I probably did. No, I think somebody thought about it a lot more. I just think somewhere along, like, the script and, like, shooting it and the direct, like, something got disconnected. That's what it feels like to me. It might have been a better movie if, like, the producers didn't get involved, or I don't know.
You're a generous person.
Thank
You're
you.
a generous person, you are.
I'm just trying to find the bright side.
But yeah, that's it. That's how the movie wraps up. Is like they have an alien baby. The end. More adventures to come? Question mark.
So tell me, was that enough? Like, was that last scene intriguing enough that if they made a second movie to this, we'd be like, oh, I got to see what happens. Like, I got to see what happens.
I got to know how that.
Yeah,
baby
what happens to
comes
the
out.
baby?
No.
Okay.
The answer is no.
I want a prequel.
Prequel, yeah.
You want to go back to the alien planet to see how their gene pool diminished?
Exactly.
That's actually might be a more interesting movie than the one we watched.
All right. Well, I assume. Do you guys have any final notes on this, or you want to get to ratings?
Let's go to the ratings.
Let's go to the ratings.
All right, Ihor. You know how this works. 10 stars. What do you think of I Married a Monster?
This 6.5 out of 10. I know the bar that we're judging it by, so we're not like 10's not art, but it's about a 6.5.
Okay. Well,
Is that high?
It's so high.
Sorry, what's 10? What's number 10? Was 10 like Tarkovsky? Is that the rating? Is that the bar?
I mean, it's personal. It's personal preference,
Okay.
Ihor. It's how you felt about the film yourself.
Okay.
How much did you enjoy it? Was it a 6.5 for you?
5. Let's go to 5.
It's a 5.
Yeah.
You're gonna come down.
It was watchable. It was a watchable
I
movie.
feel like you're browbeating him.
Yeah, you're interrogating me too much.
Well, I personally hated this film. The only redeeming value was the moment when that alien gave that man a swirly in a toilet.
That was a funny scene.
So I'm giving it 0.5.
You hated it.
Yeah, I also didn't like. I think the real main problem of this movie is that it's a dumb movie, but it's not really fun at all. Like we said, like if you like Hallmark movies, this is a science fiction movie for people who like those Hallmark Christmas movies. Like there's nothing compelling here. Like it's kind of a body snatching story, but not really. It's just these flat characters stripped of anything that would make them interesting. So there's no tension, there's no atmosphere, there's no nothing. It's just people talking about stuff at the end. They're like, "Hey, glowing eye baby," am I right? So I would give it a 2 out of 10.
2 out of 10.
2 out of 10. I mean 0.5 is still high for me. 0.5.
Wow.
Oh man.
Was it just because it was tedious to watch? Is that why your rating's so low? Like it was just there was nothing happening, but it kept leading you on the whole time?
It was tedious. It was badly like nothing fun happened in it, and like all of the human relationships were just like I couldn't stand.
Yeah.
Like I hated how everyone interacted. I hated all its gender politics. I hated everything about it.
True.
I only liked when an alien gave a man a swirly.
There was that miscarriage, though. Luke, you like that.
I believe my note was, do not enjoy.
Do you remember, though, when he cut the swirly pattern in the grass for no reason? That was good.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
And remember then he said, take me to your weeder, and we all had a good laugh?
This was your dream movie to do punch-ups on.
That's why you liked it. That's why you gave it a 2.
Yeah.
On the plus side, the soundtrack wasn't terrible. Like it wasn't riveting, but it was clearly somebody made an effort to compose music that kind of reflected the emotional. You know what I mean? Like it's that middle of the road kind of like a composer just trying to break into Hollywood. Like it was okay.
Another positive, the movie was aired in order. Like the beginning was before the end, so that was good.
They didn't botch it that way.
Yeah.
It wasn't George Lucas directing it.
Oh dear.
But yes, I think we can all agree that swirly scene was pretty unexpectedly funny. So that almost justifies watching the whole movie just to see that scene. and the CGI is so bad it's actually hilarious.
Well, I think we can tell Ihor had a better time than most.
I enjoyed it.
But I guess that about wraps up for the episode. I don't think there's anything left to cover. So, Ihor, thank you so much for joining us to watch this. I'm glad you had a good time.
Thanks for having me.
And listener, you, of course, don't need to watch this movie, but you can watch clips from it on our Instagram and Twitter, at Continuing Brag's the handle there. There's a few good clips, or at least it'll give you a real sense of what this movie is and why you'll never watch it.
Mm-hmm. People dying from oxygen.
People dying from oxygen? Yeah, maybe that'll be there.
By the way, they were allergic to cigarettes too. Cigarettes killed them as well, right? Alcohol, smoke, tobacco. Wasn't that one of the things?
Was there a tobacco?
I thought there was.
movie?
Did I miss that? Like in the bar?
I don't know.
And they were talking about all the things that are poisonous. Like, you guys don't drink. You guys don't smoke anymore. You just sit there and watch the TV. I thought I heard smoking was bad for them too. Anyway, just something I thought I'd ask at the very end.
Save it for your fans.
Okay. Will do.
But if you have any thoughts on I Married a Monster, you can email us at continuingdrag@gmail.com. That's it. That's the whole episode. So, listener, thank you for joining us. And Jordan, I will see you next week.
See you then. Continuum Drag is recorded in Toronto, Ontario. Theme music by James Rex Seidler. Produced by Jordan Dullock and Luke Black. Special thanks to Aaron Hughes.